Hi, everyone. Welcome back in. We're going to be wrapping this amazing program up, and we're so excited for Katarina to take us away with John.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all of you who are returning. If there's anyone new joining us, thank you for coming. We will be continuing straight where we left off. We've done a lot of stuff in the previous session. So let's take a few minutes just to wrap that kind of section up before we jump into the next one. So for those who are just joining in, what we have done in the previous kind of like labs, we've shown how to work with VKS, how you deploy clusters, all the various options of doing that. We've shown how to deploy a virtual machine using VM service and configure it. And lastly, we're very quickly jumping into a kind of GitOps space with ArgoCD. So I want to, for some reason, I cannot share the screen, so I will just keep talking for now.
Try now.
Yep, should be okay. Perfect. Okay, so we're back in the environment again, just a couple of minutes just to see kind of like what happened when we left off, and then we'll go to the other topic. So we have created an application in ArgoCD, which is one of the most popular tools for continuous delivery to deploy this demo application. In order to do that, we have used the files that were defining the virtual machine we deployed previously, which were created by the system for us automatically. So we are just reusing what was created for us, which is really great. We can see our application has synced. I just want to quickly explain the principles behind this because we were kind of rushing at the end of the session. So why do you want to do something like continuous delivery? It may seem at this point that, oh, you're just deploying things using another tool. What's the point of that? Well, that's the first step of continuous delivery. But there are so many things that come into play. First of all, I want to define all of my resources. That's not just my application, but also everything that it needs in code. Because A, it's done automatically for me, and B, it helps me to make sure that as I'm repeating this in different environments, everything will stay consistent. Then we have the Git part of GitOps, where we take this code and we place it in a Git repo. So now we not only have a location to store our files, but also we are able to do versioning, we can track changes, we can see messages when people are committing any new code or changing something. So it really gives us that power of that as well. And again, it's the location that defines that desired state. So this is what I want to achieve. So this is my source code, right? And now if I go to an application within ArgoCD, which is our tool of choice, we could be using others. When we were creating it, we defined two main things. One is this is my source, so that's the Git repo, and this is my destination. And to me, this shows the true power of our platform because the destination is unified for everything that I'm deploying here. So I pointed it there. And what this now does is it will look at this and continue to look at this until the source kind of desired state is matched on my destination, which is what has happened here. We can see everything is healthy. To recap, I was deploying my virtual machine, which had not only the virtual machine object, but also a secret that was passing through my cloud config configuration for my virtual machine to configure it, install some tools, create a user, stuff like that. And also a load balancer that was fronting this VM to allow me to access it on SSH on port 22. So I was able to define all of those resources and deploy everything together. And we can see that has happened. In the namespace where we're deploying this in test, we can see the VM is there and created. So this is all good for me. And I know that this has worked fine. And we will come back to this topic a bit later, but for now, let's just stop here and go back to the second part of the presentation, which was called how do we manage VKS and all of the other services in VCF. And the manage is the important part here, because in the first kind of part, I was showing you how you use it, how you consume it. I was trying to show you both perspectives, but mainly from the kind of consumer, what is the experience. Now, we need to talk about how do I enable this? How do I actually get these services to my consumers? And what are some of the tasks that I will need to be doing to maintain this platform? So these are really more focused for the administrators, the BI admins, the cloud admins who are responsible for this infrastructure side, let's call it. And with that, we need to introduce some more concepts. So all of these services that we were kind of talking about, we've shown few like VKS, but also VM service, the network service, the storage service. All of that is enabled by that declarative API, which is called a supervisor. So supervisor is what gives our platform the ability to understand and work with these Kubernetes objects. So it gives us this unified ecosystem, as we have demonstrated and talked about in the previous sessions. And it also creates that nice level of abstraction of everything that is kind of like underneath for that consumer level persona. But the most important part here is really that it's that declarative API. So if you say declarative API, usually that means Kubernetes. So let's compare this. So we've been talking about a Kubernetes cluster. John had explained what is a control plane, what are the roles that it holds, and what are the worker nodes. So when we look at a supervisor cluster, you will notice that it's very similar, or almost the same, right? Because it's based on Kubernetes as well. So our supervisor also has a control plane, which holds all of those master operations, the etcd database, the API you are interacting with, all the controllers, schedulers, and so on. And then your worker nodes are, in the case of supervisor, your ESXi node. So there we have other things installed, like kproxy for networking, or our own implementation of kubelet, which is called vSphere, which is used for some special use cases, like, for example, vSphere pods that we use. So as you can see, it's the same kind of like architecture. But the most important thing, and this is the main reason why Kubernetes is kind of the thing we use and implement to create this, is the ability of introducing something that is called CRD, so Custom Resource Definition, and its operators. John has mentioned that before, but I want to kind of go back to that because that's the true power of this ecosystem. So to go back to the theory, what is a custom resource? Well, it's something that allows me to define a completely new resource that is not available in the Kubernetes API by default. So I can define my new resource type, what it is, how it works, and then together with some controllers, or sometimes called operators, I can teach my system how to work with it. So not only do I introduce this is my new resource, but also I introduce something that is then responsible for doing the full management of it. And the beauty of this, because this is all Kubernetes, this is a native way of extending that default Kubernetes API. So as soon as I introduce a new resource, I can use all of my tools like I was using before, like kubectl and all of those other constructs within Kubernetes to work with this as well. And again, that's the main idea of this extensible Kubernetes-based declarative API. So the custom resource definition is defining, this is what I am. This is, for example, I'm a virtual machine. And then the controller or VM operator, for example, is kind of like knows how it works and is responsible for two things. First of all, it's watching to see as soon as that resource was requested by a user. So if I, as a user, I do go and deploy a virtual machine, it will get a resource request that, oh, somebody has requested this custom resource. So it's watching for that. And then it's also responsible for acting when it basically is creating those instances or managing them, updating them, and all of those operations. And now we take this principle to something that's called Supervisor Services. So there are some that are core to our platform, like VKS and VM Service and some others. So again, these are the definition of the new services that we have. And because this has this independent life cycle, we're able to bring new services that we defined into our platform to basically teach it new things. If I say, like, for example, I wanted to do GitOps, so I want to introduce ArgoCD, I install a service, and I'm basically teaching my supervisor, hey, there's this new service, this is how it works, and this is how we will operate it. And this is extremely powerful because not only can I bring new functionality in, but because I can manage each of these services independently, I can introduce them, update them, delete them without affecting other things within my ecosystem. So I don't have to update everything every time I want to update a version of a service. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that this is the principle that, for example, is allowing us to give you those VKS releases so often and allowing you to update them independently. So as soon as we release a VKS new version of the service, you can go and get it updated, unlock new versions for your consumers, unlock new functionality without having to, for example, update your vCenter. That's why it's extremely powerful. And that was just an introduction to this section. So we'll now go back to the lab environment. So again, live demonstration, just saying that again. So if you want to see how this looks in real life, that's what you will get, maybe with some potential mistakes or errors and stuff. But again, I'm sharing my real life example tips and tricks. And the first thing I need to cover is the enablement part, because as an administrator, this is the most important task you have to do. Because if you don't enable supervisor, you're not getting any of this. And that's the message that I really want to, to spread today. So you need to understand that it's something that you are enabling. And for that, I do have a few kind of like environments that I have prepped so I can show you. We will not do the actual enablement in full because we would use all of the time that we have here today, but we will make it, I will show you in a real environment at least where you would go and how it looks when you want to enable these things. So let me quickly go in here. Lab 2, perfect. In VCF 9, we have introduced a new way of enabling the supervisor through workload domain creation to make it easier for you. So when you are deploying your workload domains in VCF, you can do this as part of this enablement. Again, knowing that it's a critical part, because without that, you don't get VKS or any of the other services. So that workflow is something I want to kind of quickly show you where you would find that first. So I'm logging into VCF operations. And in there, if I will go to my VCF instance, as you would, and go to the flow of adding a new workload domain. So in VCF, you would deploy your management domain, then you would go ahead and deploy your workload domain. So I'm selecting create new, and this is all good. I just want to show you that you will see on the very first page, there's the section for enable vSphere Supervisor. So you want to keep this enabled if you want to do any of this. If you disable this, it will not enable anything. You can still do it in a different way, which I will show you. So don't panic if you don't enable it through this flow. You can still do it later. The main message is that if you want to use VKS or any of the services, you do need to go through the enablement process. So to make it easy, you can do it directly through this. I will not go through the full flow again, because it will take a long time, but here during the workload domain creation, you keep this enabled. And then as you are filling your standard information for your vCenters, your NSX configuration, storage host, everything, you will see that it added one page just one page for vSphere Supervisor, where the only things you need to define are some basic networking configurations. Keeping in mind that in this deployment, we're using NSX with the VPC integration that we have enabled or introduced in VCF 9. So it will be using all the settings that you have kind of configured before with your NSX manager and your VPC project and so on. Supervisor is just consuming what you have already defined. So you would go through this flow. If you don't do it through this flow, you can still enable Supervisor through your vSphere client. So I want to show you how that works. So I'm just logged in here. And the reason why I want to show this is because this is probably the view you are most familiar with. So without having all the different workloads and entries and everything deployed, this is your standard environment. So I have a standard ESXi cluster with 3 nodes, 3 hosts, ESXi hosts. Edges are here because, again, I'm using my NSX. So this is the environment that I have at the moment. And this does not need to be a greenfield environment. I could have some workloads deployed here as well, just for the simplicity of the lab I'm showing you in this scenario. So I can go to Supervisor Management. And in here, I'm greeted with this page that will guide me through the enablement process. Again, we have tried to simplify this over time to make it as easy as possible. There are a few prerequisites that we need, like, for example, we need HA and DRS enabled on the cluster. And we need a storage policy to define, kind of like to use in Supervisor. So storage policies, standard stuff in your vSphere environment. If you go to your VM storage policies, this is what is basically being translated into the world of Kubernetes as a storage class. So we have our default policies that you can use, or you can create your own ones. Just in this very basic example, for example, just very simple tag policy wanting to be some, right? So, but you can use the default ones as well. So a few basic things. Now, you can either do the enablement from scratch, enter all of the details, or if you have done this before, you can export the configuration in a form of a JSON file. And then when you are enabling Supervisor again in a different environment or in the same, if you are redoing it, you can import it. It will still guide us through all of the settings, so it will just pre-fill them for me. So the first thing, obviously, we have the vCenter, which is the vCenter we are using in this workload domain. And we want to be enabling this with the VCF networking stack with VPC, which I said is the new stack we introduced in VCF 9. This is then utilizing the NSX load balancer as well. We still do support distributed switches. If that is your preference and you want to do that, you can still do that. And in this release, we also still had kind of support for the legacy NSX, like T0, T1 configuration. But ideally, for the best experience, you want to be using the NSX with VPC integration in here. So going next. Then we are choosing a few options for the deployment. There's an option to deploy this over multiple zones, multiple vSphere zones, so multiple vSphere clusters. We won't be doing that in this lab because we have one cluster. So I'm selecting cluster deployment. We give our supervisor a name, and we select the cluster where we want to deploy it. So again, we only have one. It has a default vSphere zone linked to that. So we go to next. Then again, as I said, you need to define a storage policy, but you're perfectly fine using the default ones if you want to. There are two types of network in here that I just want to very quickly cover. So the first one is management. This is where the control plane of the supervisor lives. So the control plane VMs. So you just need to define some networking for that. So very, again, easy, IP addresses, DNS, NTP, stuff like that. And then you are defining your workload network. So this is where your workloads, everything you are deploying is deployed. And as you can see, it's using the default project that we created, the default connectivity profile, and we're defining some external IP blocks, which are used then by the load balancing services you are deploying, so you can reach things externally. We also have some nice diagrams, plus you can decide your private CIDRs as well. So basic network information, control plane size, you can choose from multiple sizes. One thing that I did not point out on one of the previous screens was this little button here, which basically says whether you want to deploy one control plane for your supervisor or three. For production environments, of course, we recommend three. If you are doing, test deployment or small scale deployment, one is enough for the initial enablement. And also, if you do that by default, you will get one to kind of like save resources, but you can always go and extend it to high availability, which means deploying three. So just going back, and then that's it. So very basic information that you enter here in very quick steps, and you just click finish, and this will go off and configure everything for you. You will see the status of what it's doing here that you can monitor throughout this operation. Again, this will take some time to do, so I just wanted to show you the process, but we will now quickly jump into another environment where we have this already finished. So I will just swap my screens. And now we have this enabled. So if I go back to that screen, just for continuity purposes, this is what you will end up in that screen when it's finished configuring. So you can see everything is configured. You can see your IP that you used to access this, and also you can see the version of Supervisor. So again, this is important because it is Kubernetes based. So that's why you will see the version that is related to Supervisor specifically. We can also go in and check some configuration settings we have done. So for example, as I mentioned with the control plane, you can see if you have three. If you would only have one, this is where you will find that button to expand it to three. So enable HA, any configuration of your network, and if you want to verify that. So this is a very good location for admins. If you're looking at anything with supervisor, it's all nicely kind of listed in here. Let me make this bigger so you can see it better. So we have supervisor enabled. And when we do that, it gives us, let me just go to, it gives us some functionality out of the box. So these are the core supervisor services that get deployed, like VKS, VM service is there, and Valero is there for like backup purposes. But this is where you can then start adding new services or updating the existing ones. So there are three kind of main things I want to show you because it will show you the principles. Let's talk about the update first, because again, VKS is probably the most important thing we have mentioned. When you want to enable the new versions of VKS clusters, so the new Kubernetes releases, vSphere Kubernetes releases, you need to update the version of the service. To do that, you have to download the definition for that from our support portal. So I'm just logged in. I just want to show you so you know how to find it. The easiest way to do it, if you go to download, if you search for Supervisor Services, you will see all of our services. And in there, you can find the latest versions. So you just go ahead and you download the version that you want to update to. This is I will not log back in. I've already downloaded. It's a very quick, just a simple YAML file. And now I want to show you the process because it's extremely simple, but it's something that you would probably be doing as an admin the most. So if I find my Kubernetes service, I can go to Actions and I can add new version. All I do is click Upload and select the file. So this is what I downloaded from the portal. The package, you can see it's defining the version. I click Finish. This first step is basically registering it with my vCenter. So we will quickly see that the active versions will change to 3, which has happened. And now I can go ahead, and if I do manage service, I can choose the version I want to install. I select the supervisor I want to install this to. So we can see currently it was using version 3.3, which was the embedded version in this release. So I add that, click next, click finish. That's all I have to do. So even if I'm not someone who's actually deploying Kubernetes clusters and I'm just responsible for the infrastructure, I can very easily do this in my vSphere UI without having to actually know what's happening in the background. So really trying to make it easy. Now with Supervisor Services, they always get deployed into their own service namespace. So we can see one here. And in here, we can, if we go to compute, we can see all the pods that are part of this service. And the best way to kind of like look at this, because as we are updating the service, this will be changing. So if I change the phase, you will see that some of them are being updated. So again, introducing new functionality and things. So this will now run for some time. If I look at deployments, I will see that, again, going back to what in the beginning John was explaining, I have some desired kind of number of replicas for all of these functions. I can see how many are up to date, how many are available. So in here, once this is matched, I know that the operation is finished. The other way to look at this is if we go to the service, again, where we were, I can go to manage service and I can see the status. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is because it does say error, but it's okay. I guarantee it's okay, because this is just reporting status of coming from Kubernetes. It may temporarily be in this state while it's configuring something. So if you see this, don't panic, just let it do its thing. While it's still running, as we can see in here with the pods being changed and updated, that's still okay. So this usually takes a few minutes to actually go and change all of the definitions and everything to be back to configured. So just give it its time. That's the best tip, and wait for it to finish all of the kind of updating operations that it needs to do. Once it will finish doing that, we can go back to that managed service and we will see that the status is configured. What we can do then is, while this is running, just to save time, the other one I want to show you is what is the process of introducing something new. So I was showing you that kind of local interface in the vSphere client before. So I want to show you how you install that, because again, same process, really simple. I go to my services, and this time, because it does not exist yet, I just want to go and add a new service. I can then upload a definition that I have downloaded again from the portal with the latest version. It does some validation for me. I click finish. I will just wait for that to be registered and for that tile to appear. So I have it here. And now I can go into actions, manage service, version I want to install, supervisor where I want to install it, next. It will check compatibility, everything is good, everything is signed. I don't need to add any additional information, and I can go ahead and just deploy them. And what we will see will happen is, because it did not exist, a new service namespace has appeared, and it will start deploying things in there. So again, this will go through the installation process. The one thing that I want to kind of like point out when you are doing this operation is something we need to look out for. So we'll just wait for these to be deployed. And what we're waiting for is this blue banner that will appear here. saying that a new version of this was installed, and that we need to reload our browser. And this is because this particular service, the local consumption interface, because it's introducing new functionality into the vSphere client, it's using plugins. So we just need to refresh the browser once the plugin is deployed. So when you are deploying this, you just want to wait for this message, then you refresh your browser. And once you do that, everything is configured. You can go back to those user namespaces and start using this. So you will see it under the resources tab once you have this implemented. So it's a really, really cool user interface. Again, especially if you are an admin who has access to the vSphere client, you can manage objects from here really quickly. And again, because it has an independent lifecycle, you can bring in new versions all the time. The other service that we were using, ArgoCD. So let's do this again. And I'm doing this on purpose because I want to show you that the consistency of the process is there and the simplicity of doing these things is there because, again, as an admin, all I'm doing is I'm just introducing new services and how fast it is to teach my environment to do something completely different. It's very fast. So if I go to, I added a new, I registered it. Now I go to install this. Again, checks compatibility. Don't have to change anything. Boom, finish. It will go ahead and deploy this. The one thing that is different with the ArgoCD service, for example, is that that is deployed in a true operator model. So what I have mentioned kind of before. Before I did this action, my system or my platform did not know what ArgoCD was because it did not exist. So what I have done now is I have introduced that custom resource definition and an operator that works with it. So now I have told my system how to use it. And now, because of this, my consumers, or me, if I want to be using it, can go ahead and deploy their instances of ArgoCD. So when we were logging into that, to deploy that application in ArgoCD, that was an instance that we have deployed. So in here, you are basically just introducing the functionality, but it doesn't mean that it automatically deploys the instances because you want those to be owned by the consumers. So we have done that as well. So really quickly, we have introduced new functionality into our platform. Just to double check, we can go back to our VKS one. Everything seems to be running, so that's all good. And now if I go to my services, my Kubernetes service, if I go back to manage, we can see it's all configured. So when I said don't panic with the error message, I meant it. It's all good, all configured. The other way you can check these services, again, there are various views. I can go into my supervisor, configure, and I also have my services. So here's kind of like an overview of which services are installed, what versions, and what their status is. This is what I can also do. If I want to manage it from this view, I can. So that helped us to kind of like show what you would be doing to manage this whole ecosystem. So to recap, most important thing, you need to enable supervisor. Without supervisor, none of Kubernetes stuff is happening. So we enable supervisor, but think of that action as something you would only do once, right? As I said, you either do it when you are creating your workload domain or right after. So it's the same thing as just like configuring your clusters. It's you just go through that enablement in the beginning. And then once you have it enabled, you can start using the services. But then again, when you want to introduce new functionality or update the actions, the other most important task as a cloud admin is to keeping these services up to date or installing them. when they are required. So you have all of that nicely installed here. Again, if you want to verify that for example, the VKS service updated successfully, we saw it and configured, but because we introduced this local consumption interface, I can also go to my resources tab. And if I would go then into Kubernetes in this namespace, so create a cluster, even if I leave it on default, it's kind of small in this view, but it's using the default configuration always takes the latest available version. So before I was on VKS 3.3, the highest version of VKRs I could use in that release would be 132. So now I've updated it to 3.6. I can use the latest 135. So that was a demonstration of this, and we have 9 minutes to kind of wrap up. So in here, again, this was just an environment where we went through that enablement and the introduction of the new services. And this kind of got us to that starting point that we were using in the previous session where we were showing the consumption. So all of that is ready to go, and consumers can then go into that first step where they access, their environment, log into their organization that they've been given access to, and then they can go ahead and start using all of these services. So this will just log in, and we're kind of like, if I go to the overview, we're back at where we started. The one other thing that's worth mentioning for admins, if you want to have an overview of what's happening with all these Kubernetes workloads, and you have, as an admin, you are the one who has access to ops. As I mentioned, we also can send metrics and statistics into ops also for your workloads that are deployed, like VKS and what's deployed in there. So when it's configured, I think I have one cluster deployed here. If I, for example, look for that cluster and I go to my topology, I can see what's running inside of that cluster. And again, I can get some statistics and metrics and all the data as an admin that I would want as well. So let me stop that there. Let's go back to finish our presentation. So let's just go back in. So we finished our live presentation for this part 2 as well. Now, everything we've been doing today in these demos is something that's really useful if you want to go and repeat that. And we do have our hands-on labs that are available already for some of the use cases with like really step-by-step guidance. A lot of labs that are specifically created for the world of Kubernetes and VCF with VKS and all of the other services. But if you want to specifically kind of repeat the steps that we were doing today and get some guidance around that and maybe more get like a playground environment, we will be also sending you information on how to access labs for that purpose. So it will be the labs that I was using today. So hopefully if you watch the recording, you can then kind of like follow along, but we'll also give you specific instructions. And this is something we want to give you throughout this series. So you can not only listen to us and watch us do stuff, but you can also go ahead and then try it out on your own and finish some of these tasks, because hopefully that will help you understand this even more. So that's for you. If in your organization you do want some help within this space, we also have teams of experts who are available for that as well. So you always have the opportunity to engage our teams to help you with specific requirements in your organization and help you on this journey on assessing how you can move into this space. And again, if you are migrating specific workloads and need that guidance, so that's available for you. And just to wrap it up, again, we kind of opened with this, but want to close with it as well. We do have few VMware Connects coming up. There's one coming up very shortly next month, 2 weeks in Amsterdam. I will be there presenting as well. Please join us. Please come talk to us, ask questions. We always like to interact with you. There will be loads of very interesting sessions about the space as well. And plus there's loads more coming as well. So yeah. Also, just to mention, remember, Advantage members have this VIP experience. So make sure that you look into VMware Advantage as well. And yes, stay connected with this community. And thank you for your time today. Hopefully you had a good time, enjoy that, and have a nice rest of the day. Thanks.
Thanks, Katarina. We had one request to go back to the slide right before VMUG Connect, so I don't know if you could throw that one back up. I think it was about the teams. And then
Yes,
after
I
that,
can.
I'll finish it up.
Can.
Yeah.
Good. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was this slide.
Okay, just bring it up back on the
Perfect.
screen.
Great. So hopefully that helps, Johan. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Huge shout out and thank you to our presenters. This was incredible content today. We've never really brought something like this to VMUG before, so I'm glad that you all had a great time and really got some key information. We do hope to continue these throughout the year. So there will be a survey that will be sent to you in about an hour, I believe. And it'll have 10 questions and it'll really help us curate the content for the rest of this year as it deals in the Kubernetes and container space. So if you'll please take a second to fill that out and help us build this series to be even better and serve you all. You'll also be getting a recap email. We'll have recordings linked, and if you submitted a question through the Q&A that we didn't get to, we will be able to get with those offline when we get a chance. So thank you again to everyone. We do appreciate it so much, and I hope to give a couple minutes back to your day. Thanks.
Thank you.